The legendary Scott Adams passes away in a fairly, I would say, pedestrian way, but he leaves behind a message that we're going to go back and talk about and, well, wish him the best in his next life. So we'll talk about that and how that affects people going forward. In other news, we talked briefly about this last week as it was just breaking while we were going live with Contemporary, but we have had a lot more to see with the case of Renee Good. We're going to talk about what happened with that, what people are saying about it, what the medical records are saying about it, and what people are trying to say about it as well. This is turning into quite the mess, so we will go over what's happening with that, what we do going forward, and, well, some of the ways that Minneapolis is reacting. Speaking of Minneapolis, well, that would be St. Paul in this case. On the same vein of things, articles of impeachment have been filed against Governor Tim Walz. Per Minnesota State Constitution, the removal of office of elected officials, it works about the same way as elected officials in our federal government, which means that they will vote on the articles, see if they can get it passed, and send it over to the Senate for a trial. This one might get interesting. We will see what happens with that and where this goes. And lastly, at least for the intro, because we've got much more coming after this, the Donald has decided all by himself that he is going to do a couple of things to try to make life more affordable for the rest of the country. Will it work? Well, I have some opinions on this one, and the MAGA faithful, as you probably guessed, are not going to like it because, well, every angle that I've looked at for this looks like it might actually make it worse. It is going to be all of this and more. You're on Contemporary, so strap yourselves in, find some friends, get some people in this chat, because the more you chat, the more we get pushed out to the front, and the more we get to talk to these sweet, sweet strangers on Twitch and YouTube. And we will see you on the other side of the title card, and saw my picture in the paper, read the news around my face, and now some people don't want to treat me the same. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. That was going to be the theme music for season 3 of the Red Ned Show. Just so you know, I like that song. I like the mix they did with it, and I mean, you all know that I love Final Fantasy X. So, for those of you who are unaware, who are not as geeky as I am, that is the main theme for Final Fantasy X, remixed, of course. My name is Jay Edgar. Good morning. Oh my goodness! Did anything happen this past week? Oh boy, did. Well, I would not actually say so much our big story this week. I wouldn't say that it happened so much as we got a lot more information about it. So we're going to talk about what's going on with that. The Dow is up over, pushing. Well, it's not pushing right now because we've got an entire 1,000 points to go, but we have hit a new 52-week high, and it is getting ready to go push 50K. Now, a lot of that is because the Dow is measured in overinflated Biden bucks, but still, 50K on the Dow. It's definitely nothing to sneeze at. So we're going to talk a bit about what's going on with that and where that goes. Yeah, definitely a ton of stuff to go over here today. So let's get right into it. Let's get started. Kind of watching everything go on. Looks like we dropped some frames when we first started out, but I don't know if the entire stream just reset. Actually, I should probably look at the YouTube and make sure that I'm actually running on the same stream that I was before, because, well, that would be a good reason why we're not running with anything else here. But anyway, hi, hey, good morning. My name is Jay Edgar. This is Contemporary. A lot to go over here today, and we're going to try to keep it down onto a hard out again. So keep that in mind as we go. I do check in with all of your chat, and of course, the more you chat, the more we run up to the front page. So we are going to get into it. Let's get started. Once again, we do not have, for reasons I cannot figure out to save my life, our regular chat agent, not a chat agent, but the app that I use to monitor all the chats. So I will be bouncing back and forth between the Twitch/YouTube and the Rumble because, well, I can't for whatever reason marry those two chats together. So if you got something to say and it particularly associates with a certain tribe that comes out of the Judah region, you guys know what it is that I'm saying, then maybe you want to kick that one over on Rumble for a little bit. I'm not trying to censor you. I'm just trying to keep your comments being able to be brought back up. Because YouTube censors a lot of those things, and so does Twitch. Rumble does not. I'm just saying on that one. And, well, I'll be completely straight with you. I probably can't read most of that stuff anyway, because I am going on a YouTube live stream along with the Rumble. But the links are in the X. They're in the Discord. So if you guys want to join on that side, please feel free to do so. We are really quiet on the mic today. Let me do a little bit of on-air production here. Open sound settings. Master volume is down there. Microphone properties. Let's bump that up just a little bit. 1, 2, 1, 2. I'm going to take that just a little bit more. Because, yeah, we are definitely... Okay, we're getting where I wanted to be in the red now. I don't know why that keeps walking itself down. But it's a fine balance off this microphone. I'm actually looking at a new one at this point based on the fact that, well, given the fact that I've been at 3 years at my my current big boy job, they gave me a nice big catalog with some stuff that I could get for being a loyal employee for 3 years, and one of them was, it wasn't a Yeti microphone, but it was the same style as the Yeti, so I actually thought about that one just to see how that goes. It's a JLab is the brand on it, which the best pair of earbuds I've ever owned is JLab, so I'd be curious as to see what they do and how it does. Maybe the sound quality would be completely crap. But I think as good as the Golden Neewer microphone has been, the Golden Edgeworld microphone has been, I think it might be time to retire it. It's... How long have I had this thing? It's been a good 6 years on a $20 microphone. It might be time to go back and retire the thing. Good run, by the way. Absolutely. Don't know if I would buy this brand again, especially since we've got a little bit more money than we did at the last point, but definitely something to go back and look for that. All right, anyway, we have filibustered enough for the morning. We need to get down into the news for the day, so let's get started. Let's get my settings off of here. And let's do the thing. Uh-oh, we've got some activity over on the kick side. And the Damned Man as well. Oh, hey, we've got a Pepe over on that side. I like the Pepe ones. If you have the ability to put Pepe emotes in either the Twitch or the Kick, do so. I love that stuff. Alright, let's get started. I've said let's get started like 5 times, alright? This is live. This is not scripted. We do this as we go. Alright, let's do the thing. We're going to start this morning with the Dow. talking about what's going on in our markets, which, as I mentioned before, we hit a new 52-week high at 49,633.35. Some definite motion, especially since over the course of the last year, and we are closing in on the end of Trump's first year. 36,611.78 was the low. So, absolutely, we've got that. Everything's coming right now. And again, keep in mind that everything that we're seeing here is in hyperinflated Biden bucks. I would say, just on an offhand calculation, that our Dow, if we were still using pre-2020 dollars, or even if we held a nice even push at 2% inflation, because remember, the points on the Dow are measured against what the actual US dollar is, we would probably actually still be in the upper 30s right now. But that low, that 52-week low, would be in its small 20s. It might even be pushing down towards the 17,000 mark that we saw during COVID. So just a couple numbers to keep in mind as we go. And again, that's not an exact calculation. That was just what I did off the top of my head just now. So that is what we have for that. Looks like the damned man over on the kick side, his screen name changed colors. Did you do that, or is that because you threw some cash at me? If you threw some cash at me, thank you. I don't know why they went over and did that, but awesome, awesome. Oh, reminder, Sparta's throwing cash at people. Oh, cool, we're listening to this song again. Oh, no, it's a different version of it. Anyway, yeah, just a reminder off that as well. If we get the subscriber count up to 20 subscribers concurrent on the Twitch side at any given point, then I will grab the frozen ukulele that we have upstairs in my daughter's room. It is not a ukulele that sat outside in Wisconsin winter. It is actually, it's got the blue paint and it's got On Else on it from Frozen. And I will play that right on this webcam. Just to have ourselves a little bit of fun and, well, raise some money for a good cause. And when I say good cause, I mean my household. So keep in mind that if you want to share that out and get 20 people to concurrently subscribe to the channel, that would be awesome for you. All right. On the Dow, let's grab a story from this one and see what's going on with that. We'll grab one from Yahoo. We're not going to grab one from Yahoo Finance based on the fact that that one is almost a day old. Let's grab the live updater instead and read from that one. All right, on the market today, NASDAQ futures lead Dow, S&P higher as the TSMC's strong outlook buoys AI hopes. Let's get the live chat back up here. It did because I wanted more red. Okay, he changed the red. And more Pepes. Pepe, Pepe, Pepe. Yeah, I love that stuff, so absolutely do that. U.S. futures mostly climbed on Thursday, signaling a recovery from the back-to-back losses as chip linchpin TSMC's strong outlook boosted AI hopes in the wait for more big bank earnings. Contracts on the tech-heavy NASDAQ rose 0.9% to lead the way higher, and those on the S&P 500 up 0.4%. The Dow fluctuated along the flat line following a second straight day of losses for the Wall Street indices. TSMC, the world's largest contract chip maker, posted a 35% jump in fourth quarter profit on Thursday thanks to the AI boom. The major supplier to NVIDIA and Apple said it plans to ramp up investment to $56 billion in 26, a sign of confidence in sustained big tech spending on AI bailouts. Or build-outs, not bailouts. It's not the auto industry. We're not doing a bailout. Shares in the Taiwanese company jumped, stoking a rally in chip-related stocks such as ASML, and that is not ASMR, so we'll get that up out of our head. We can do some ASMR if you want, but you gotta pay me a little bit for that one. So, NVIDIA also bounced back from Wednesday's decline. The mood marks a reversal after the tech-led stocks lower on Wednesday, which dragged indices and promised to revive a weeks-long rotation out of mega caps into value names. Meanwhile, investors assessed a fresh batch of big bank earnings before the bell. Goldman Sachs far outstripped expectations as deal-making stayed strong, bucking the trend. Buck that. Peer BlackRock capped 2025 with a record $14 trillion in assets, which includes homes that you can't buy. As its earning beat on the economic front, an update on weekly jobless claims is on the docket. We don't see that one just yet. So, another boost to the market. Oil prices sank amid signs the U.S. is backing away from a military response in Iran. I think that's about to change, by the way. We might get some breaking news while we are on air today, by the way, based on the fact that we just parked another aircraft carrier outside of Iran, like 5 hours ago. That is not on the stack today, but if we are looking around and an open war breaks out in Iran, well, we'll do it live right on air. Yeah, damn, man, says keep an eye on the pizza places. The Pentagon Pizza Report. And they were having a little bit of a flurry of activity this past week. I've been keeping an eye on that. There is a Twitter or an X account. Hey, we're offline. I am glad I record this. Hey, we were offline there for a second. I'm glad I record this because, yeah, that was a crash right there. Let me just make sure all of my regular live streams are up still. Yes, we are. Oh no, they got him. Thanks over onto the kick. Reminder, since that came up, if we do run into spots where we completely disconnect or anything else, everything that's going on right now is getting recorded across my sound card, as well as what's going up live. So the live video at the end of this will get privated. So those of you who are following the link on the Twitter, etc., that's up there currently, that stream is going to get privated, but everything that I've said, including what I said while we were offline, is recorded across my sound card. So we will get a clean copy of this that doesn't have any of the drop frames or anything else. Anyway, keeping going on what we were at. Talking a little bit about what's going on in Iran. Yeah, it looks like there might be some military action going on there because we just parked an aircraft carrier. We'll continue to watch what's going on with that. All right. And to our regular news. Let's have that conversation because, well, we get to throw some F's in the chat today, 100%. Yeah, it looks like 3 people viewing over on the YouTube side. Thank you, whoever you are over there. Come in and say hi. The more you chat, the more we get sent out to the front page. A handful of people over on the Twitch side. I can see all of our monitors over here, even if I don't have our regular lookup. Looks like we actually had a bunch of people over on DLive when we started off, but that one settled off. And yeah, the Pepes are throwing up over on the kick side too. So, all right. We're going to start our regular news track this morning with a story from NPR saying that the person we're going to talk about is controversial because, well, it's NPR and that's the only way that they can describe somebody who doesn't agree with them whole hog 100%. Remember, hit that donate button because NPR is only 10% government funded. NPR is never printing reality, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what they have to say about the vaunted Scott Adams. Scott Adams, the controversial cartoonist, because of course he's controversial, dies at 68. This is from All Things Considered, which is a misnomer in and of itself because only some things are considered if they are beneficial to the Democrat side of things. Rachel Treisman reporting. Scott Adams, the controversial cartoonist who skewered the corporate culture, has died at 68, he announced in May 2025. He had a metastatic prostate cancer and only months to live. we're going to cut the music for just a second. We're going to have a moment of silence. And not because we're dropping frames right now. Or we're about to drop off the internet again. Which, by the way, I've got to figure out why it is that we're doing that right now. Because we're hardwired and we're not supposed to have to be going with that. But let's first get the music off of here. We don't care about the Sinnoh Pokemon League right now. And let's think about Scott Adams. Okay, dead air is not good for podcasts, so that is all that we're going to do for this, unfortunately. And yes, figure out why we're dropping frames yet again. That's going to be a message to Spectrum, like probably while I'm on air here. In fact, we're going to go over to the X and do that right now. Okay, let's see what their message is, or their handle is. Ask _ I have no problem doing this while I'm on air, because this is a bit ridiculous. I tweeted at them. I don't care. Yeah, let's figure this stuff out. Alright, anyway, while they are doing that, let's talk more about Scott Adams. Alright. Months later, in November, Adams took the extra request and received some very public help from Trump and HHS RFK Jr. in addressing health insurance issues that had delayed his treatment with the FDA-approved cancer drug called Pluvicto. So, again, NPR is going to make this entirely political. Because that's a thing that they do. Adams said he was able to book an appointment the next day, despite the Trump admin's public intervention. Adams shared on his YouTube in early January that the odds of me recovering are essentially zero, which unfortunately, at a point, you get to the cancer side of things and you know. I am appreciative of the fact that I know people that have started to recover from cancer at this point. When I was a kid, you heard the C word, and it was a death sentence automatically. It didn't matter what it was. Or at least that's what they told you in every single situation that you heard the C word in. Now, knowing that, I also understand the fact that my grandfather did survive stomach cancer twice in the 70s, when it definitely was a death sentence, but as we go along, there's no cure for cancer, regretfully. Cut off the affected part or blast it with radiation and wait for it to come back is what we see. You know, I lost an aunt to brain cancer. I lost another aunt to an ovarian cancer that they cut literally everything out that could have caused or been affected by ovarian cancer. And it turns out that it migrated. And the one sibling of my father's who never smoked in her life died of stage 4 lung cancer, because that's where the stuff from her ovaries went to after they cut it all out. It found a nice home in the lungs and it grew there. I am not a doctor, so I don't really know how cancer works. So I may be way off on that description, and fully admittedly. Adams' former wife, Shelley Miles, announced his death on Tuesday during a YouTube live stream, and then read a statement from Adams, which we do have also, by the way, up here for this, who said, "I had an amazing life. I gave it everything I had. If you have any benefits from my life, I ask that you pay it forward as best you can." Which, and again, I liked Dilbert when I was a kid. I liked Scott Adams before he got controversial in MAGA, and then kind of turned a little bit towards the anti-government thing. But, and again, in the end of his life, he did turn straight back to the MAGA side of things, turn to Trump, turn to RFK to try to save him. And it just, there was no chance at that point. But I've always liked Dilbert. I thought it was hilarious. I remember even when they made it an animated series. And I thought that was hilarious too. I like the fact that they updated and Dilbert became an IT guy instead of just an office clerk, But yeah, it's been a good run. Adams rose to fame in the early 90s with his comic strip Dilbert, satirizing white-collar culture based on his own experiences working in company offices. He made headlines again in the final years of his life for controversial comments about race, gender, and other topics, which led to Dilbert's widespread cancellation in 2023. Translation: he started to support somebody that we didn't like, so we got him off of everything. Dilbert, which at its height was syndicated in some 2,000 newspapers across 65 countries, spawned a number of books, a video game, and 2 seasons of an animated sitcom. I think you have to be fundamentally irrational to think that you can make money as a cartoonist, and so I never answer succinctly why it was that I thought that this would work. Adams told NPR's Weekend Edition in '96. It was about the same cost as buying a lottery ticket, and about the same odds of succeeding, and I buy lottery tickets, so why not? He said that he pretty much always wanted to be a famous cartoonist, even applying for the Famous Artist School, a correspondence art course, as a preteen. Is that kind of like the Learn How to Be an Artist commercial that we just saw absolutely everywhere when we were kids? Do you remember that stuff? Like, learn to draw, learn to be an artist. Constantly. And then you send a whole bunch of money away to these whatever schools and hope for the best. But yes, Adams has passed. Definitely go pay your respects. If you find the X post, I would say do that. The Associated Press, Scott Adams, whose comic strip Dilbert ridiculed white-collar office life, dies at 68. We're not going to go over with this one because, well, we talked about what we need to talk about from NPR. Let's grab the X post, the final posting from Scott Adams, a final message, if you will. Let's blow this up because, well, my eyes are not that great. A final message from Scott Adams. If you're reading this, things did not go well for me. I have a few things to say before I go. My body failed before my brain. I am of sound mind as I write this, January 1st, 2026. If you wonder about any of my choices for my estate or anything else, please know I am free of any coercion or inappropriate influence of any part, I promise. Next, many of my Christian friends have asked me to find Jesus before I go. I am not a believer, but I have to admit, the risk-reward calculation for doing so looks attractive, so here I go. I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I look forward to spending an eternity with Him. The part about me not being a believer should be quickly resolved if I wake up in heaven. I won't need any more convincing than that, and I hope I'm still qualified for entry. With your permission, I'd like to explain something about my life. For the first part of my life, I was focused on making myself a worthy husband and a parent as a way to find meaning. That worked, but marriages don't always last forever, and mine eventually ended in a highly amicable way. I'm grateful for those years and the people I came to call my family. Once the marriage unwound, I needed a new focus, a new meaning, and so I donated myself to the work, literally speaking, the words out loud of my otherwise silent home. From that point on, I looked for ways that I could add the most to people's lives one way or another. That marked the start of my evaluation from Dilbert cartoonist to author of what I hope to be useful books. By then, I believed I had amassed enough life lessons that I could start passing them on. I continued making Dilbert comics, of course. As luck would have it, I'm a good writer. My first book, in the useful genre, was How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. That book turned out to be a huge success. Huge! Often imitated and influencing a wide variety of people. I still hear every day how much that book changed lives. My plan to be useful was working. I followed up with my book, Win Bigly! Bigly! That's a Trump thing, by the way. Bigly. That trained an army of citizens how to be more persuasive, which they correctly saw as a minor superpower. I know that book changed lives because I hear it often. I've never read that book, by the way. I'm not much on the self-help genre. I might. Don't hold me to that because I might not, but I might. You'll probably never know the impact the book had on the world, but I know, and it pleases me while giving me a sense of meaning that is impossible to describe. My next book, Loser Think, tried to teach people how to think better, especially if they were displaying their thinking on social media. That one didn't put much of a dent in the universe, but I tried. Finally, my book, Reframe Your Brain, taught readers how to program their own thoughts to make their personal and professional lives better. I was surprised and delighted on how much positive impact that book is having. I also started podcasting a live show called Coffee with Scott Adams, dedicated to helping people think about the world and their lives in a more productive way. I didn't plan it this way, but it ended up helping a lot of lonely people find a community that made them feel less lonely. Again, that had great meaning for me. I had an amazing life. I gave it everything I had. If you got any benefits from my work, I'm asking you to pay it forward the best you can. That is the legacy I want. Be useful, and please know I loved you all to the end. Scott Adams. F. Giant F's in the chat. A lot of people saying, what a loss, what a life. People saying, rest easy, missed already. And yeah, Adams, he was a big part of my growing up, even, again, before he got into the politics side of things. Adams was huge in my life. Dilbert was a big part of where I was and me growing up, so. Vong has joined us over on the Kick side. Did you bring stable internet? No. And again, like I said, if you see coughs and hiccups, just remember this will all be re-uploaded. And today on YouTube and on the audio platforms. So I do hope Scott Adams did find what he was looking for in the end of life. I know that he said that he was not a believer, but he accepted on his deathbed. I hope that I'm never in the situation where I have to wonder if that's going to work or not. But thank you, Scott Adams, for that. All right. And a little bit of shakeup in the DC side of things from WBAL TV. This one is not as sad, but it's going to change for the makeup of what's going on in Washington. I think it's time longtime U.S. Rep Steny Hoyer opens up about the decision to retire at the end of his term. From Hannah Hoffman. Steny Hoyer, District 5 of Maryland, discussed his decision to retire at the end of his current term. Hoyer, 86, the longest-serving House Democrat, announced Wednesday he will not seek re-election at the end of his term. Quest Fanning has joined us over on the YouTube. YouTubing away. Let's go see what we got for notifications. They want me to send a DM over on Spectrum, so let's do that. And that message is sent. On-air production. This is, by the way, an ongoing fight with Spectrum. This goes back to 2 apartments ago. I guess this is an apartment. This is my home. But yeah, this goes back to 2 apartments ago. That this is just a constant thing with them. They're a good company and they fix what's wrong, but man, does it ever take forever to get the bugs worked out, especially when you're in a new place. Hoyer is the longest serving House Democrat, of course. People are congratulating me, and I don't really feel like it's congratulations. Hoyer told WBAL TV 11 News on Tuesday, I feel badly about leaving, but I think it's time. I made a judgment. I'll be 89 at the end of the next term, and I don't think 86 or 87 is a premature retirement. Hoyer said he wanted to pass the baton to a successor while he's still healthy. Well, he has made a lot of controversial statements. He's been one of the people who's been very, very much responsible for the injection of politics into our complete everyday life. Tom and I were actually just talking about that not that long ago. I think it was yesterday. It might have been the day before, but just the fact that everything is political at this point. Like, we talk about AOC, Steny Hoyer, Nancy Pelosi, the Donald, Barack. We talk about these people the same way that we used to talk about, why am I drawing blanks? The way we used to talk about Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Mark Ruffalo, the Hemsworth brothers, people like that. Or Katy Perry or stuff like that. Our whole lives have just become flooded in politics, and I would say it actually is maybe even a little bit annoying at this point because, well, these people don't add anything really to our lives. In fact, they, I think, detract from most of it. But yeah, this is one of the guys who put that up on the forefront. Just briefly from the Daily Wire. Steny Hoyer, who once served as House Majority Leader, House Minority Whip, and Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, will be retiring. That's right, he was the Minority Whip from Congress at the end of his current term. He's been in Congress longer than any other Democrat. I've decided not to seek another term in the People's House, he said on Thursday. I make this decision with sadness, for I love this House and institution. Hoyer is 86, and he took office in 81. So Steny Hoyer has been in office longer than I have been alive. Wrap your head around that for a second. I am 41 years old. I'll be 42 in April. And this guy has been in office for longer than I have been walking on this planet. I am not a term limits person, but man, was there nobody else in Maryland who could look up and say, I can do a better job than this guy? Nobody? Maryland? Really? Has this guy ever suffered a primary in his life? And yeah, as going on to that, I know a lot of people say term limits for Congress, term limits now, term limits this, term limits that. I have never been a term limits person for Congress. Not because I think that people like that should be in there for as long as they have and be there for longer than I've been alive. That's not it at all. In fact, I think a lot of these people should be cycled out of there. I think that we need to make it easier for people to come in and run so that the common everyman can kick some of these people to the curb. Make it easy for people to get kicked to the effing curb because, my God. All right. We got to talk about you guys. It's in the air. It's surrounding us. We're going to do George Floyd again, apparently. For those of you who are hardcore Republican or MAGA, damned man, when I say Republican, I don't mean the Irish type. I mean the American type, because I know that's a very, very different thing. I know it's a meme that's going around right now, but I am not in agreement with the MAGA people on this one. And a lot of the arguments that I'm going to have about that have to do with the same things that I said about the people that Rittenhouse shot. And the fact that we just look at them and say, oh, abuser, kitty diddler, and stuff like that about them at the moment this happened. So, reminder, of course, that the day before, the Wednesday before Contemporary last week, a civilian named Renee Good got into a confrontation with an ICE officer at her car. She lurched forward. It looked like it was possible that she was going to hit her, the officer. And of course, he had a split second to make that decision. And he made a shot. 2 shots. Directly in the face. Towards a civilian. Which has opened up large amounts of public debate over the last week. Talking about what is a justified shot, who is justified, and of course, Renee Good's criminal history, because apparently that is where anybody who wears a red hat has to go immediately as soon as we see one of these things, and it's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen people do in my life. One more before we do start talking about what's going on with this is I have looked at the camera angle. I've looked at several camera angles because we actually, and I said this last week, that we were only going to have the one bad angle witness video of what happened with this, which, by the way, that is still what our friends on the left are using to justify their outrage and whatever. Just that one video. They won't have a look at any other angle of any of this. I've looked at numerous angles, numerous body cameras, numerous other witness testimonies, DHS testimonies, etc. As far as I can tell from the evidence that's in front of me, yes, her tires may have been pointing away, but given qualified immunity and the split-second decision-making that has to be done when you are enforcing the law, everything that looks at this tells me that was a justified shot. Racing of the engine, gunning it, the confrontation. No matter what it is that the dude said after the shot, which, yes, the guy should be disciplined by DHS for that, but in the eyes of the law, what happened was a justified shot. The tensions were escalated. The officer had no idea, no way of knowing whether or not the car was coming for him when she gunned the engine or whether the tires were turned away from him. He had a split second to make that decision. Any court would look at that, given the fact that the size of a Honda Pilot is a deadly weapon, or makes it a deadly weapon, even if it only has 190 horsepower. At that close of range, is a deadly weapon. That was a justified shot. You can sit here and debate it all day long, or how right it was, or anything else. But the DHS officer, under the current framework, will not face penalty. And the way that current police protocol laws are written, yes, including ICE, no, the officer will not face any sort of reprimand for this. He should be on administrative leave. Absolutely. And yes, there should be a fuller investigation than what's going on social media. But based on the evidence that's before us, this is a justified shot. Love it or hate it. And if you want to see something different off of that, petition your congressman, your congresspeople to change the laws and write definitively what they believe will be or should be a justified shot. All right. I think Vong jumped the gun on him. us a little bit here, but yeah, we will be talking again about the reaction to all of this. All right, now let's talk about what Fox News has to say about this. ICE agent struck by Renee Good's vehicle suffered internal bleeding to torso, DHS said. This is from Alexis McAdams, Stephen Soras, Louis Cassiano from Fox News. The federal agent who fatally shot Renee Good in Minneapolis last week suffered internal bleeding to his torso when he was struck by her vehicle, DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin confirmed to Fox News on Wednesday. Now, we already have Democrat lawmakers trying to call this bullshit. But part of that is to try to foment riots in the street. Because, as I said last week when we were talking about this, a divided population is easier to control. So the more people that they can go out and convince that this was completely unjustified, the more they go out and protest, and the more we have arguments against each other, instead of all turning our ire towards the people in Congress who deserve our ire. The extent of the bleeding to U.S. ICE agent Jonathan Ross was not immediately clear. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem previously said the agent was treated at a hospital following the incident on January 7th before being released later that same day. The health update comes after Jacob Fry previously downplayed the agent's injuries. The ICE agent walked away with a hip injury that he might as well have gotten from closing a refrigerator door with his hips. He told reporters on Friday, "Give me a break." No, he was not run over. He walked out of there with a hop in his step. Cell phone videos of the encounter prompted a mix of reactions from officials and lawmakers. Federal officials have said that when Good pulled forward in her vehicle towards the ICE officer, he acted in self-defense and described the driver's actions as an act of domestic terrorism. Okay, it was not an act of domestic terrorism. It was stupid. And I would say probably simple vehicular assault. Domestic terrorism, no. No, fuck you. Authorities have also said that Good had been following and harassing federal officers earlier in the day. And our friends with the red hats will come back and say that that in and of itself is justification for the shot. It is not. Once again, we'll talk about that in just a moment. Many of you have been told that this law enforcement officer wasn't hit by a car, wasn't being harassed and murdered an innocent woman. J.D. Vance said on Friday in a post on X, the reality is that his life was endangered and he fired in self-defense. Meanwhile, Fry called any self-defense argument garbage. Other Democrats and some local residents, however, condemned the shooting as a murder and called for Ross's prosecution. This is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I do think that Ross should be prosecuted. If nothing else, to get the evidence out there and have it picked apart by a jury of peers. It's the same thing with Chauvin. In spite of what happened to him, in spite of what happened to Chauvin, going to that trial give us the opportunity to see 7 different camera angles of what happened with the George Floyd case than we would have otherwise seen. Now, with that being said, a part of the reason that I'm kind of glad that this isn't getting prosecuted is that there should be a change of venue. It should not be tried in Minneapolis, where you know they're going to surround the courthouse in Hennepin County and make sure that any juror that comes in and out of the place knows that their life is on the line if they deliver the wrong verdict. Now, we're not under COVID, so we can actually remand the jury and keep them in-house. They do have quarters in order to keep juries in-house while they deliberate, so they don't have to walk through the active war zone the entire time. But regardless, it is near impossible for a jury to deliver an impartial verdict in that particular venue. Just saying. And even if I do, by the way, think that I wouldn't say that I think that the officer's innocent in this, but I think that the shot was justified. Even if I think the shot is justified, I love trials. Do you know why I love trials? Because then we get to see all the evidence. We get to have everything on the table. Every part of the investigation, every single detail comes out at that point. So yes, I think he should be prosecuted. Because then we get to see everything. Alright, on the Renee Good side, this is going to be a bit of the propaganda that tries to make her seem like the saint and the martyr. A beautiful light, Renee Good's family mourns her death amid push for transparency after ICE shooting. From Dina Zaru and Sabina Gemrabedin. Hey, my thing didn't go to trial. Neither of my things did. They got dismissed prior to trial. But again, that was based on the investigation and the evidence that came out. Because of the fact that I went through the systems and all the chapters, right? Yes, it was nerve-wracking at the time. But everything came out, and in both cases, the judge looked at the prosecutor and said, "This is bullshit. Get this out of my courtroom." So keep that in mind when I say I love trials. Think of how much extra stuff we learned about the Rittenhouse case because it went to trial. Because it didn't get dismissed out of hand. And how much we get to come back out and tell leftoids, hey, here's a clip of what actually happened, not what you've been told to believe on MSDNC. Alright, from ABC News, the family of Renee Good, the 37-year-old mother of three who was fatally shot by an ICE agent on January 7th in Minneapolis, is mourning her death after announcing that their legal team has launched a civil probe into her case. They'll be talking about that just briefly as well. Good's parents, Tim Ganger and Donna Ganger, along with her four siblings, told ABC News in a statement on Wednesday that they miss her more than words could ever express, and thank those in the community who have reached out to show their support for her family after Good's death. Good was a mother to a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 6-year-old. We want to thank everyone who's reached out in support of Renee and our family. The kind of unending care that we've been given during this time is exactly the kind that she gave to everybody, and we are offline once again. So I'm going to keep talking through this while Spectrum figures this stupid shit out. But yeah, we're going to keep going off of this one. Remembering Good is a beautiful light who brought joy to everyone she encountered. Good's family said that the kindness they've experienced since the death is the kind of unending care that Good, whom they nicknamed Nene, gave to everyone during her life. DHS has said that Good was allegedly attempting to run over law enforcement officers in an act of domestic terrorism. And again, the domestic terrorism, that's propaganda, that's hyperbole. When Jonathan Ross fatally shot her, but leaders in Minneapolis have disputed this claim, condemning ICE agents' actions. For mostly political reasons, by the way. According to ABC News analysis of a verified video, including new footage that emerged on January 9th, Good could be seen turning her car's steering wheel to the right, away from the ICE agent who shot her just over 1 second before the first of 3 gunshots was fired. Really? Really? Really, Spectrum? Oh, verify name, address, account number, and phone number. see how they do that. It is bad today, and I will come out and say it has never been this bad. Since, well, that first week that I was living outside of La Crosse, when we were having issues, that was where it got bad the first time. And there we go again. Those of you on live, I apologize. And again, we'll go back and this will get re-uploaded as a recording. So, don't worry about that. Alright, Ross, who fatally shot Good in the alleged car ramming incident, suffered internal bleeding. Multiple U.S. officials familiar with his medical condition told ABC News, but the extent of his injuries is unclear. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem claimed in an interview with CNN's State of the Union that aired on Sunday that Good had been protesting ICE activity in the city and harassing law enforcement officers in Minneapolis. She was impeding law enforcement operations moments and hours before the fatal shooting, Noem added. Good's death has led to widespread protests in Minneapolis, with advocates calling for the U.S. Department of Justice to launch a civil rights investigation into her death. There's currently no basis for a civil rights investigation, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said in a statement on Tuesday. Plus, Fanning just caught up in real time. Long says, to quote, Chris Reagan, Spectrum, suck my dick. No, we're going to be nice to them right now because we are hoping that they figure out what the hell is going on. So we stop going through this bullcrap. Because, yeah, it's not a Wi-Fi issue, I can tell you that. We're hardwired in. So, with being said, before we get into this New York Times opinion piece that I have here, as I said before, a lot of people are now coming out and saying Renee Good was this saint, she was this martyr, she was a parent to this, she was a parent to that. And that doesn't matter, and it's the same going on the other direction. The MAGA people are coming out saying she's this horrible piece of crap, she did this, she had her kids taken away, divorced this, criminal act that, etc. Here's one thing to keep in mind. I said this, the same thing when we talked about the kitty diddler and the abuser that Rittenhouse shot. Yes, it's interesting the fact that you can randomly fire 3 shots into a crowd at a protest and hit a kitty diddler and 2 abusers. We can sit and have a conversation about that separately. But what Rosenbaum and Grosskreutz and Hoover all did in their previous lives before that had absolutely no bearing on anything that happened that night. And what justified Rittenhouse's shots that night, which, and again, all came out in the trial as we talked about, was what was happening in the immediacy, what was happening as the shots were fired. We can sit here and have a conversation about the fact that Rosenbaum had just got out of St. Luke's for mental disability. And I think he was trying to commit suicide by counter-protester as well. I'm almost positive of the fact that that's what was happening. He saw someone with a gun, he knew that his girlfriend was walking out on him, he had no place to live. So he thought to himself, hey, I can go Darwin myself and be a martyr for the cause. Because if this kid comes out and kills me after I antagonize him all night, then all the news outlets are going to say right-wing terrorist this, right-wing that. Which didn't wind up happening for him, unfortunately. Same with Grosskreutz. He was a serial abuser, an elder abuser. None of that mattered. What mattered was the fact that he pulled a 9mm out of his pocket and pointed it at somebody that had a bigger gun than him. In the immediacy, You can cite me statistics all day, all night, forever, to what it is that you think that Renee Good did in her past life before the incident that happened. And I will wave them away as dismissal. Now, if you bring these statistics up, we might have an explanation as to why she did what she did. It might lead us psychologically to figure out why she stood in a Honda Pilot and antagonized ICE officers. But what immediately happened was the fact that while she was staring down an ICE agent, she revved her engine up and gunned her engine at a point when he had no way of knowing where those tires were pointed, and a split second to react. That is the only thing that matters in any of this. Everything else that comes out is intended to try to make you feel a certain way and change your mind one way or another on the outcome of this entire stupid thing. That's it. It's all propaganda. You're a listener of Contemporary. You should be smarter than that. Alright. Can the ICE agent who shot Renee Good be prosecuted? Short answer. We'll read a little bit of the New York Times, but short answer is yes. You can prosecute a ham sandwich. You get the right grand jury, the right people in the wrong mood, and yes, you can prosecute anything. I could throw a snowball at a car passing my house right now and get prosecuted for attempted murder. You can indict a ham sandwich. Alright. Shayla Dawn and Jonathan E. Bromwich. There would be many obstacles for any prosecutor trying to bring a case against the ICE agent who fatally shot a woman in Minneapolis last week. If the state were to charge the U.S. agent, the Constitution makes it difficult for state authorities to prosecute federal officers for actions taken while on duty. No, that's actually propaganda, again, by the New York Times to try to make you feel a certain way. It's actually surprisingly easy for a state to prosecute federal agencies constitutionally. Because of the 9th and 10th Amendments. It's surprisingly easy. Bomb is here. Quest is caught up on real time. Damn man says she hit a man with a car, that's all I care about. Quest Banding says main player syndrome. I think the right needs to be in air quotes. No, when they write something like this, by the way, saying if the state were to charge the agent, the Constitution makes it difficult, that's trying to make you feel a certain way about the current administration, saying, oh, well, they're just going to go back and protect their own people. It's so bad. Even if the state cleared that hurdle, it's difficult to convict law enforcement officers in any circumstances. No, it's not. Let alone those as contentious as the shooting of a woman, Renee Nicole Good. And in this instance, yes, like I said, with the evidence that's in front of me right now, and if the prosecution brings a completely different piece of evidence that I haven't seen, I would welcome to see that. But with the evidence that's in front of me right now, that is unfortunately a justified shot. And the Trump admin, all but guaranteed not to bring a federal case, is refusing to share evidence with Minnesota authorities. But Minneapolis' top prosecutor, Mary Moriarty, said in an interview on Wednesday that lack of access to federal investigation was not a complete barrier to prosecution. This isn't a whodunit, she said, adding that she was exploring ways to compel the FBI to share the evidence. A thorough investigation likely would take months and require a detailed analysis of the episode, which began when Miss Good, parked across the road, was approached by ICE agents and ordered out of her SUV. When she instead began to drive, the agent, Jonathan Ross, who was bracing himself against her vehicle with one arm, fired 3 times, killing her. The episode was recorded on several cell phones, and footage was instantly ubiquitous. Legal experts said that while the prosecution was feasible, securing a conviction would be a struggle. That last part I agree with, by the way. Steve Laddick, a professor at Georgetown's University Law School, said that given the videos, finding probable cause to charge Ross would not be a stretch. Correct. It gets much harder after that. Correct. Because, again, split second with laws written the way that they are, yes, that is going to be considered a justified shot. With what's in front of us right now. From WKOW, out of Madison, Renee Good's family hires George Floyd law firm to investigate Minneapolis ICE shooting. Famously, we remember the fact that under the George Floyd case, they hired a private firm to give them the answer that they wanted over his autopsy, given the fact that he had enough fentanyl in his system to kill a small elephant. From Heather Hollingsworth, Renee Good's family is accusing federal immigration officers of killing the Minneapolis mother of three as she attempted to follow agents' instructions, and said Wednesday they have hired the same law firm that represented Floyd's family to press for answers and accountability. Her loved ones said in a statement that they want Good remembered as an agent of peace, and urged the public not to use her death as a political flashpoint. While, meanwhile, hiring the law firm that is famous for making a death into a political flashpoint. According to the Chicago-based firm Romanucci and Blandin, the firm said it's investigating Good's death and will release information in the coming weeks. The family's decision to hire the firm came the same week as the DOJ said it sees no basis to open a federal civil rights investigation into the shooting. Well, no, there doesn't need to be a civil rights investigation. Criminal investigation, yes. Administrative investigation, yes. Civil rights, no. There's no reason to be a civil rights investigation. That again just makes it a political flashpoint. Roughly half a dozen federal prosecutors in Minnesota resigned this week, and several supervisors in the criminal section of the Civil Rights Division in D.C. gave notice of their departures, according to people familiar with the matter. I have seen conflicting reports of that, by the way. I've seen reports that say, yes, what WKOW just said, and others that say that that is full-out bullcrap. The admin has defended the ICE officer's action, saying he fired in self-defense while staying in front of Good's vehicle as it began to move forward. That explanation has been panned by Jacob Fry, Tim Walz, and others based on videos of the confrontation. So that is what they have for that. Let's keep going. I know I got not very much time left on this one, but we gotta head out of here. Skip. And an op-ed from the New York Times before we move on off of this. Because yes, again, we're going to turn around and make this into a political flashpoint. In spite of the family saying, let's not make this a political flashpoint. America needs a Renee Good Civil Rights Act. If Good had been killed by a state or local police officer rather than ICE agents, the family could sue the shooter for excessive force and violating her rights. They still can, by the way, they just have no guarantee of success. But there is no law that allows federal officers to be sued for their constitutional violations. There's also no law that bars it. Congress should pass long overdue legislation to fix this anomaly, a Renee Good Civil Rights Act. Federal officers can be held criminally liable for their actions, but because of a hole in federal law, civil suits against them struggle to move forward. In one case, the Supreme Court held that people who have been illegally thrown off the Social Security disability rolls and were left without income could not sue, even if they had been given no due process. In another, the court declared that a man dying of cancer after the prison repeatedly denied him any medical care could not sue. Similarly, the court ruled that people illegally detained after September 11th and subjected to great abuse by prison guards had no remedy. That was a different situation entirely, by the way. That had to do a lot with skin color and sentiment around people of that region of the world at that time. Federal officials can be held criminally liable for their actions, but because of the hole in federal law, we saw that one, we read that already. Yet for 150 years, civil suits against state and local officials have been allowed. Soon after the Civil War, significant violations of civil rights, especially in the former rebel states, led Congress to recognize the need to empower federal courts to enforce the Constitution against state and local governments. The Civil Rights Act of 1871 makes it a crime for state and local officer to use their authority under color of law to violate a person's rights. The act also allows civil suits for monetary damages or injunctive relief against any state or local employee who during their work violates the Constitution or federal laws. No, you can sue the federal government for violations of your civil rights. So we don't need another law saying this, unless, again, you're looking for a way to go back and get people targeted. Alright. That's what I have on that. If we want another little propaganda piece, I will link this in the Discord. I'm not going to go over this one, but Democrats want to turn the ICE shooting into another George Floyd moment. I said that as soon as I saw that it happened. So that's not. I wouldn't say that that's the headline. I would say that's the name of the paper. Let's put this over in articles. Wired trying to tell you how to protest safely. TLDR, you can't. Minneapolis set up an autonomous zone. That's already been dismantled. Yep, the Seihan Journal telling you that's been dismantled. So yeah, they set up an autonomous zone over in Minneapolis, and basically the local authorities came in and said, no, you're not doing this. We're not doing this here. Alright. Anyway, that's what I have to say about the Renee Good stuff. There's a surprising amount of misinformation that's going along with this at this point, coming from both sides of the argument. And it's unfortunate, because when you run with misinformation like that, it makes it hard to get to the actual bottom of what's going on with this. To reiterate everything that was just said off of the last little bit of this. Yes, by the evidence that we have in front of us, the shot was justified under current federal and state and local laws. Yes, there are conflicting narratives about who Renee Good was and what had happened in her life prior to that. No, none of that matters. And yes, you can go and take the federal government into a civil suit. There are no guarantees that it's going to go anywhere. In the midst of all of this, and maybe part of the reason that there's a push for the protests that are going on there is possibly to distract from what's happening elsewhere in the world on this one. Elsewhere in the Twin Cities, I should say. Walz impeachment articles drafted by Minnesota House lawmakers from Nick Longworth over at Fox 9 KMSP. Mike Weiner. Why do they always have to have the name Weiner, by the way? Mike Weiner has provided Fox 9 with the pending articles of impeachment drafted by Minnesota House Research Department. The Minnesota Constitution provides the House lawmakers with the power of impeachment and the Senate with the power to try any impeachment efforts once passed. According to the draft, Timothy J. Walz has engaged in corrupt conduct in office by violating his constitutional oath to faithfully execute the laws of the state. 4 articles within the draft allege the following. Walz has violated his constitutional oath of office by knowingly concealing or permitting the concealment of widespread fraud within the Minnesota state admin programs, despite repeated warnings, audits, reports, and public indicators of systemic abuse. Walz was made aware of substantial ongoing fraud within the state programs involving taxpayer funds and failed to take the timely and effective action to hold such fraud, despite possessing executive authority to do so. Walz violated his constitutional oath of office by actions and omissions that interfered with lawful oversight, investigation, or corrective action. Related to the fraud in Minnesota state agencies, Walz failed to promptly direct executive agencies to fulfill cooperation with audits and investigations, permitted or tolerated resistance to legislative oversight or public transparency, failed to remove, discipline, or track senior officials responsible for overseeing programs, and later found to be fraudulent, and took action or permitted action that delayed corrective reforms while losses continued to mount. By the way, this is a part of the reason that he is choosing not to run this term through, because, well, then the focus can all be on the next person coming in here, who is most likely going to be of the same party and of the same political persuasions, based on the fact that the next governor of Minnesota is going to be elected by Minneapolis and St. Paul and Rochester. It's an unfortunate reality of life, but it is a reality of life. Let's see. Walz failed to uphold his constitutional oath of office by placing political consideration above lawful admin, thereby breaching public trust. Walz prioritized preservation of political narratives over disclosure of known program failures, failed to act decisively to protect taxpayer funds. Once fraud became apparent, allowed executive agencies to continue operations without adequacy of guards after fraud risks were identified, and undermined public confidence in state government by failing to ensure transparency and accountability. And Walz also failed to uphold his constitutional oath of office by failing his constitutional duty to faithfully execute the laws of the state of Minnesota, particularly laws governing stewardship of public funds, allowing statutory safeguards to be ignored or weakened. Again, just like I said about prosecution, you can indict a ham sandwich, and you can impeach a ham sandwich. Given the political situation of the Minnesota State Congress, it is likely this is going to go through, but it is going to fail in their Senate. It'll be interesting to watch the trial, though, especially given how publicized this all is. The fact that this is probably going to be one that we get to watch. I also find it interesting that other than Newsweek, the only outlets that are covering this are local outlets. We don't see a lot coming out of big national outlets. WABC, 77, KMSP. We don't really see anything on CNN, MSNBC, Fox, anything like that. Even Fargo, North Dakota's local KBRR is reporting on this one. Something to watch for off this one, especially when we sit back and talk about the propaganda. So, Matt Walsh, talking about Mayor Fry, did everything good to stoke the Floyd riots that burned a city in 20. Now he's doing it over again. He's a vile parasite, one of the most evil and incompetent officials, etc., etc. You know, Matt Walsh saying things about people he doesn't like, as he often does. But I wanted to talk about this one here. Apple Lamps replying to this. Sarah Clark, Mayor Jacob Fry's wife, worked for Hilden Advocacy and Law. Hilden Advocacy and Law provided legal and lobbying representation to Feeding Our Future. $250 million food aid fraud. Hilden is also listed as a paid lobbyist in the Somali Museum, founded by Osman Ali. Museum received $4.5 million months later, and the owner pled guilty to fraud. So I actually wanted to look and see if there was any major reporting in a national outlet on this one. And this particular X post came out on January 7th. So this actually came out before we talked about, before we were on Contemporary last week, this came out. And I went to go look into this, and our friends over at Google used their label that they always try to do when they try to keep the story from hitting the top of the headlines. It looks like results are changing quickly. Meaning, I can't give you news on this right now because the narrative is changing so fast and it's really, really uncomfortable. Is the music loud? We can do something about that. We have a mixing board, we can do that. New set of headphones, keep in mind. So I'm still getting used to those. This is the first time I've used them on stream. Alright, what else do we have? Daily Wire. A little bit of Tim Walz stuff again. Tim Walz warns of civil war and proves he has no moral authority left. This op-ed coming from the owner and editor emeritus of the Daily Wire, Mr. Shapiro himself. The situation in Minnesota continues to roil the waters. We're looking at the very real possibility of a standoff between state government led by Walz, the failed vice presidential candidate who was just one step away from a third-term run in Minnesota because of the allegations of fraud, and the federal government. On Thursday, Walz, who's in a world of hurt politically right now because of the Somali fraud scandal, compared this moment to the Civil War. Apparently, it's now the Civil War if you send ICE to enforce arrest warrants against criminals in this country. I don't want to read this entire article because, well, it's Ben Shapiro. But I want to talk about that paragraph in particular, what it is that he just said, because actually, technically, yes, it is. I know Ben is mocking Tim Walz for saying this, but in essence, it actually is. When we look at the Civil War that happened before, the first one that we had, the root of what happened in the Civil War, a lot of people, a lot of history teachers will try to tell you that it was all about slavery and it was just the South was mad that they couldn't keep having slaves. The Civil War erupted mostly because of violations in the compact between states and the federal government. Partially because it's surrounded with secession. Yes, the slavery argument was at the foot of it, yes. But a lot of that came from either authorities from the South going back to attempt to reclaim the people who had run away, being as citizens from them, and the North refusing to do so, refusing to turn them back over, or refusing to enforce what at that point was foreign law, refusing to extradite. The war itself was entirely political and had to do with resources from the seceding South. The the North having a industrial powerhouse but not having the raw materials to keep it fueled, without having input coming from the South and the raw materials that were there. But yes, a state sitting here and refusing to allow federal authorities in, as much as I hate federal authorities, yes, that is the definition of a civil war. Ben. And that's what spawned the last one. So you might want to stop off the top of your mocking horse and realize that, hey,
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
We've done this before. And yes, it is a scary situation for those of us who want to be left alone by both the federal and local governance. Alright, let's keep going. Got about 15 minutes left, so let's talk about... I don't think we're going to get to any of the foreign stuff today, but I want to talk about some of the domestic side of things. Maybe we've got 20. Alright, we have a video message from Jerome Powell because there's an investigation now into Powell himself, which may or may not be political at this point. It is.
Good evening. On Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas, threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June. That testimony concerned, in part, a multi-year project to renovate historic Federal Reserve office buildings. I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. This new threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings. It is not about Congress's oversight role. The Fed, through testimony and other public disclosures, made every effort to keep Congress informed about the renovation project. Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. I have served at the Federal Reserve under 4 administrations, Republicans and Democrats alike. In every case, I have carried out my duties without political fear or favor, focused solely on our mandate of price stability and maximum employment. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do, with integrity and a commitment to serving the American people. Thank you.
So the Donald has launched an investigation into the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell more specifically based on renovations that are being done to the Federal Reserve as we speak. But also on the heels of the fact that the Donald has been asking the Federal Reserve to drop interest rates since January 20th of last year. I've said my piece on the interest rates as it is. I think that they should be down a little bit, especially on the mortgage side of things, if you're trying to come back and house people and overcome and outbid some of the BlackRock buying up of properties. But if you drop it to 0, all you're going to do is, well, basically you're going to overinflate the housing prices. Now, for a guy like me that owns a house now, that's great news because my $200,000 house has the potential to hit $300,000 depending on how the bidding war goes. And I can use some of the equity at that point to go back and get out of some of the other debt that I have. But for the people who are looking to the Trump admin to fix the pricing and housing crises because they're living in a crappy apartment somewhere because that's all that they can afford, Yeah, at that point, you're kind of screwed. Trump attacks Powell again amid Fed independence fears. That jerk will be gone soon. From Kevin Breininger. Trump on Tuesday slammed the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell as either incompetent or crooked, even as his department faces growing opposition over its criminal investigation of the central bank leader. Trump threw his latest punch at Powell after being asked whether the unprecedented action undermines confidence in the Fed, which has long enjoyed independence from the executive branch. He's billions of dollars over budget, Trump said, apparently referencing the costs related to a multi-billion-dollar renovation of the Fed's Washington headquarters, which is at the center of the DOJ's probe. Well, I mean, and again, I'd still be interested in to see where the money is coming from for that and how it's justified. So either he's incompetent or crooked, Trump told reporters outside the White House. I don't know what he is, but he certainly does not do a very good job. Trump lobbed more insults at Powell after traveling to Michigan to tour a Ford auto plant and deliver remarks at the Detroit Economic Club. Which, by the way, I have that article in Things I Like. Not because it's appropriate for the president to do what he did, just because it's absolutely hilarious. Trump's comments came as bipartisan criticism of the investigation and support for the Fed's independence continue to grow. Everyone we know believes in Fed independence, JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon told reporters early Tuesday after its bank released its fourth quarter earnings results, which are largely benefited on the Fed's, quote, independence. Anything that chips away at this is probably not a great idea, Dimon said, and in my view, it will have the reverse consequences. It will raise inflation expectations and probably increase rates over time. Trump brushed Dimon's concerns aside later, telling reporters, I think it's fine what I'm doing, and calling Powell a bad Fed person. He's done a bad job. We should have lower rates. Jamie Dimon probably wants higher rates. Maybe he makes more money that way. So, yeah, that's fun. But he does say he has no plans to oust Powell from the Fed. Partially because I don't know that he can. And Politico magazine throwing an article, why he's not flinching at Trump's attack. Well, maybe his I's are dotted and his T's are crossed. In other finance news, Eric Doherty over on X, breaking, Trump just stunned the experts by announcing the purchase of $200 billion in mortgage bonds to immediately drive down mortgage rates. So, in addition to the investigation, he tries to go and do an end run around the Fed to try to get more people into housing. I'm instructing my representatives to buy $200 billion in mortgage bonds. This will drive mortgage rates down, monthly payments down, and make the cost of owning a home more affordable. It's one of the many steps in restoring affordability, something that the Biden admin absolutely destroyed. We're bringing back the American dream that was destroyed by the last admin. Well, are you bringing back the American dream, or are you making it harder for the people who aren't in it? And then again, as a person who owns a house, I think it's fantastic if people start bidding wars on other houses because, again, that raises the market value of my house. But for all the people who are out there living in a one-bedroom apartment in a bad neighborhood in a minor American city, who look at the market and say, will I ever be able to own? I have great credit. I have halfway decent credit. I have a good job. Why is a 3-bedroom shack turning into a $500,000 thing? Leading report says Trump says interest rates should be 1% or lower next year. Again, would love to see that, but for the majority of the people, I think it's too soon for that. We need to have a lot more inflation of wages and wage growth before we can even think about bringing our interest rate down that low. I would like to see, before we get interest rate below 3%, at least a 5% wage growth year over year. Because that means more people with money burning a hole in their pocket will be able to afford the price jump that comes with dropping that interest rate. On CNBC, Trump orders mortgage bond purchases to lower rates. These stocks are jumping in response. From Alex Herring. Shares in mortgage lenders jumped on Friday after Trump instructed reps to purchase mortgage bonds in an attempt to lower rates for home buyers. Trump said in a social media post Thursday he was asking unnamed buyers. It wasn't clear if that meant the Treasury, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or another agency to buy $200 billion of mortgage bonds. This should bring down rates and monthly payments, making home ownership more affordable, Trump said. Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pulte later posted, "We are on it." Trump said he was making the push because Fannie and Freddie, the government-sponsored entities that buy mortgages from the banks, credit unions, and other original lenders, are sitting on a pile of cash. Mortgage lender Rocket Companies jumped more than 9% and notched a fresh intraday high going back to 2021. UWM Holdings gained more than 13%, and its best day since 23, lender PennyMac rose more than 6%. AI-focused lender Better Home and Finance added more than 6%. Open Door Tech, a real estate commerce platform that has become a meme stock, surged at more than 13%. So, and there's some of your charting that's going along with that. So it's really, really good if you bought into some of these companies as soon as you saw that. And yeah, if that does actually bring the rates down, it's going to be fantastic for those of us who own, but for the rest of the world, I'm not 100% sold. And as I was just saying, economists warned that Trump plan to reduce mortgage rates will raise house prices, which it will. Because if you have a 4% interest rate, the ones that are on the market suddenly have 10, 15 more people that can bid on them. A leading economist has cautioned that Trump's plan to lower home costs and improve housing affordability could end up worsening the challenges it is intended to solve. Last week, the president said he had directed his representatives, later confirmed to be Fannie and Freddie, to purchase $200 billion in mortgage bonds, which he said would drive mortgage rates down. We know that. But Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's, believes such a plan is flawed and wrote an X that artificially boosting housing demand this way will result in higher house prices, all else equal. Fair. And again, it would be great if we could get the interest rates down to that point, but in order to not price most American citizens out of the market, we also need to see a good 5% wage growth to go with that. And then we have the credit cards, and I think that's where we're going to wind up ending here for the day. Well, and then things I like, things I hate. Mortgage bonds, we know that. Mortgage rates up below 6% for the first time after the $200 billion bond buying. Which I guess I'll have to talk to some financial planners and see where I'm at this point, because, well, remember, I bought this at 7%. And yes, mortgage refinance demand jumps 40% after Trump's $200 billion bond buying spree briefly sinks mortgage rates. So that is where we are at on that. From the USA Today. Trump's 10% cap on credit cards may hurt more than some imagine. From Susan Tompor. Of the Detroit Free Press. Trump's call for putting a one-year 10% cap on credit card rates certainly catches the eye. And no surprise, it has caught the wrath of bankers. Consumers are fed up with outrageously high interest rates being charged on their credit cards. Banking experts say 10% is way too low to keep lending to riskier companies with weak credit histories. So, another TLDR on this one, and I want to address a couple things on this. One of the big ones that I want to talk about with this one is what's actually happening versus what it is that they say is happening. Because a lot of the people who are against this, myself included, looked at this the first time, saw just cap at 10% on credit cards and say, this is going to destroy, again, the people who are trying to climb their way out of some of the worst financial positions of their lives, including myself. I brought myself up on this one. When I got my first high-risk credit card, when I was 32, yes. When I got my first high-risk one, after the hell that I went through living in Kenosha, Kelly went through living in Kenosha, he says, while drinking out of a Kenosha coffee mug, yes, the interest rate is high. The interest rate on that card, which I still have, is high, admittedly. Because I had a credit score in the high 500s at the time. But because of the fact that, yes, the company that extended it to me can make money off of me if something were to happen, if I were to fall into destitution again and not be able to do something with it, which thankfully, since that point I've not had to do, but if I were to at some point fall into that destitution, that company still made a bunch of money off of me. It was a worth the risk kind of thing. Right now, if I were to go apply for a credit card and there was a 10% cap, then it would be no problem for me right now in this market with the credit score the way that I am and the payment history that I have to go out and get one. I think the only bar actually would be the amount that I have out right now because of this first year in this house being a bit more expensive than I thought it was going to be. Not necessarily a credit score issue. Which, by the way, if that cap goes and drops everything that's on my current stuff down as well, then I can turn around and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get a lot more paid off on this because both of my rates on both of my cards right now are above 10%. I can put more money towards principal at this point, which I think is what we're going with this. So, backing up to what I was saying before. Now, in the time period that this is in, credit card companies could do two things. They could go back and extend credit out in a higher risk form, knowing that they can go back after a year and jack that interest rate back up on people who actually are falling on hard times and struggling and still make their money back off of it, or they could just cut it off completely. But when this first came out, we all first looked at this and said, oh, well, he is just going to make this a permanent thing and nobody is ever going to be able to do anything. Because people who have high 500s, low 600s credit scores are not going to qualify for anything because the credit card companies are going to look at this and say, I'm going to lose money off of this deal. No, thank you. I'm not going to deal with that. The year cap on that, I think in that year, I think what credit card companies are going to do, and I'm not a credit card company, so I don't know what they're going to do. I think they are going to continue, I think they're going to stop issuing high-risk cards. Your credit ones, your capital ones, your companies like that issue high risk cards are going to go through and say, no, we're not going to do anything like this right now because we can't make money off of any of this. But for those of us who have 1, 2, 3 cards out there that are admittedly in the 20% range, with that interest going down, we can put more money towards our principals, our balances on these cards, and get some of them paid down, freeing up money and economy at the, and economic power and purchasing power at the time. And as I found out last year when I took some of my insurance settlement from my old truck and paid off one of my credit cards entirely, when your credit card balance goes down, even if it's just one of them, your score goes way the hell up. Raising scores, and again, qualifying other people for better loan terms. So this one is a hit or a miss. If it was a permanent 10% cap, I would say that it's probably a problem. A year, I'm going to say that's a wait and see. Let's check back in a year and see what it did. Because it could go either way at that point. So that's what we have on that. And with that, I have to start to head out of here. But before we do that, we're going to do our regular close, things I like, things I hate, and the rules of acquisition. I know there's still a bunch of stuff on the stack, but life happens. So, as we always do, we read one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition, talk about how it's used in program and how it can be used in real life, if it can be. And as we've found, a lot of them can't be because they are anti-capitalistic propaganda because of who Gene Roddenberry was. And we've used a lot of these and pointed them out. So we move on to the 151st rule of acquisition. Even when you're a customer, sell yourself. Damn Man says, maybe we'll get a new war by the end of next week, or by this time next week. You know, the way that this month has been going, I wouldn't put it past anybody at this point. It's been wild. It's been weird. Alright. So, even when you're a customer, sell yourself. You know how you get a better rate and you get to negotiate with the bar owner, the shop owner, the car dealer, the home seller, the real estate agent. You know how you get to negotiate with these people? Make a rapport with them. Talk to them. Show them the benefits of why they want to go back and do business with you. Now, yes, if you are a reputable seller, people are going to want to come buy from you. And yes, they want to come back and pay the premium for doing business with you. That is something that we've known for quite a while about people and the human nature of things. But if a guy that I've never met before just comes in and starts demanding that I give that person a discount on something, I'm most likely going to come back and tell that guy to screw off. If he comes back out and leads with it. If the guy sits down and has a conversation with me, admittedly, on myself. If he sits down, he has a conversation, ask about my kids, ask about how long I've been into this thing, and we have a nice rapport, I'm more willing to come back out and cut the guy a break and say, you know what? You're a good man. We can do this. I can't lose my shirt off of you, but I can give you a few bucks off of something like that. And you can do the same thing. You make the rapport, you talk to people. Some of them become your friends, ironically, as you go down the road. But the rapport is there. You do the things, you make people happy, you make them feel comfortable. You're way more willing, or more likely to get a good outcome with somebody that you've actually talked to and enjoyed a conversation with and really gotten into the head of than somebody who just, hey, come and give me a discount. So, there you go. Even when you're the customer, sell yourself. So a couple things that I hate. Some things that I like. Oh, we're on the end of things I like. So, Some more political. This Democrat is single-handedly blocking the prosecution of COVID fraudsters. An interesting conversation given the political nature of PPP loans, which I was against from the beginning, the forgivable PPP loans. You can go back and be on record. I said this was a terrible idea way back when they proposed it. And I still think it was a dumb fuck idea to go back and give companies a loan that they could apply for forgiveness from. Basically give them a grant to keep their doors open. And wonder how many people would come in and try to use this to make a bunch of money off of that they didn't have to pay back. How many shell companies made billions? But Democrat Ed Markey appears to be blocking a bill that would extend the statute of limitations. So, extend the time that we can go back and investigate this stupid shit that I told you was a bad idea 6 years ago. Because the statute of limitations is running up on a lot of these cases, and, well, not a lot of people have been brought to justice over this one. And you hear the progressives and the Democrats saying, oh, well, this Republican took a PPP loan, and this is why we shouldn't have to pay off our student loans, and this, that, the next thing. But yet, here is a Democrat that's blocking the ability to go back and investigate this. So, of course he is. The House passed the SBA Fraud Enforcement and Extension Act in July by voice vote, signaling an overwhelming bipartisan support. The two-page bill simply gives more time for prosecutors to charge people who swindled 2 COVID bailouts, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant. The programs are so fraud-ridden, the dollar amounts so great that investigators and prosecutors have large backlog. Congress already added another 5 years to prosecution window for the biggest COVID programs, the Paycheck Protection Program, and unemployment bailouts. But Markey, the top Democrat in the Senate panel overseeing the Small Business Administration, which took the lead on the pandemic recovery, appears to be using the position to block passage in the upper chamber. The Senate SBA, which is chaired by Joni Ernst, approved the bill in July, but has not been brought to the floor for passage. Because it can't. And yeah, if that all runs out, then, oh well, kiss that money goodbye. White House says Marjorie Taylor Greene sold President Trump out to lefty protesters. Don't look at me. Reason this is on Things That I Hate is because, again, I told you who this woman was. 10 years ago, I told you who this woman was. No, it wasn't that long. No, what did she do? She came in 2020 because her first act in Congress was to try to impeach Trump. So 5 years ago, because she would have been seated in 2021. I told you who this woman was 5 years ago. I told you exactly who this woman was 5 years ago. She was sent in, elected as a Republican in a deeply Republican district where they would vote for a glass of water with an R on it, and basically became a caricature of what Democrats call Republicans. Any accusation that Democrats lob at Republicans is saying this is how you are, that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene was. I'm still convinced that Democrats hired her as an actress to go sit in Congress because of the way that she acted while she was in Congress and what she has done after she's announced that she's leaving. I told you what she was 5 years ago. Nobody wanted to listen to me. Alright, let's do a couple things that I like. So, a lot of the times when I do this, I talk about what I've been watching on TV, and I actually found in some backlogs and some programs you've probably never heard of, somebody has uploaded the entire run of The Drew Carey Show, which you could get season 1 on DVD and on Amazon Prime. I have it on Amazon Prime, but no other seasons have been made available on any platform anywhere else. If you can find a back channel to find all 9 seasons of this program, I recommend giving it a shot. We need more stuff like this out there. You know, not And I like the superhero stuff. I like the Umbrella Academy. I like stuff like that. But, you know, we don't have any everyman stuff anymore out there. Like we had with Last Man Standing or Home Improvement. Like we had with Roseanne was a good one for that. There's just in every family. Young Sheldon was like that. Yes, of course, Sheldon the super genius, but the show more focused on the regular working class family and the struggles that they had. The superhero stuff is fun, don't get me wrong, but we need more stuff like this, where we just follow the life of an HR guy and all of his friends. So I have here the trailer of The Drew Carey Show, back when it first aired in 1995.
Antenna TV.
Did Mr. Bell call yet? Does he know I'm late? Dang.
Good luck, Drew. From here on out, I don't know you.
Carrie, it's Bell. You there?
Yes, sir, Mr. Bell. Just going through my files.
Wouldn't happen to be the cosmetic counter applications.
Yes, sir. You must be psychic. Hey, guess how many figures I'm holding up?
Need that position filled by Monday, Carrie. Customers are complaining that they have to wander from counter to counter looking for help.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bell. You know, it's always a pleasure to talk... Lois, can you send back my first interview, please? Sure. Yes, Mr. Bell. Right away, Mr. Bell. How's the heart, Mr. Bell? Oh, that's too bad, Mr. Bell.
Drew,
Yes.
Mimi Bobeck. I'm here for the interview.
Nice to meet you, Mimi. What department are you applying for?
Cosmetics?
Okay, great. Please sit down. Let's see here. 2 years in phone sales, darkroom assistant, reader for the blind.
I'm also single, if that helps.
Not me. I mean, you know, we don't count marital status either way. Now, you know, we will be interviewing quite a few people for this job.
Oh, well, so that's that. Well, nice meeting you.
Excuse me?
That's the code. Interviewing quite a few people means forget it. Just like thanks for stopping by means we don't want to see you ever again.
That's not what I was saying.
Cut the crap, Mr. Carey. I know what you're thinking. You have to be one of those classically good-looking women to sell cosmetics.
Oh, no, not necessarily. Your looks are just fine.
Did I say they weren't?
I was hoping somebody had.
Well, how does it work, Mr. Carey? Huh? Some empty-headed bimbo walks in here and you feel something in your groin and get the job?
What?
What other requirements didn't I meet? Wasn't my skirt short enough? Didn't I bend over enough during the interview? What does it take to get someone as sexist as you to hire me?
Oh, you know, you're certainly under consideration, so there's
What's your boss's name? I can find out if you don't tell me.
Look, his name's Mr. Bell.
Mr. Bell.
I think you're making a big mistake here. You know, you're not being judged by anything but your application. Hey, I see you speak Spanish.
You're in really big trouble. You know that? I didn't come in here to be insulted by some crew-cut jerk who thinks this job is his own personal beauty contest. You're a pig!
We'll call and let you know.
And it's 9 seasons of that, and it was done well. I think they dropped off at the end, but a lot of shows suffer for that. But yeah, if you get a chance to get to see it, go ahead and have a look. I think you'd enjoy it. I enjoyed it. All right, a couple other things that I like. The UAW is defending the man at this point, but and yes, like I said, it's not the way that a president should act. I'm sorry, I still thought it was funny. Trump flipped off an automotive worker at a Ford plant. The White House says it's appropriate. It wasn't. But it's still funny. Trump flipped off an auto worker as he toured a Michigan Ford plant, and an incident caught on video Tuesday, and the White House defended the action as appropriate response to someone screaming at the commander-in-chief. I'm not going to lie, if I was the president touring an auto facility, I would try to talk the guy down, but it wouldn't take me long before I would probably do the same thing. A lunatic was wildly screaming expletives in a complete fit of rage, and the president gave an appropriate and ambiguous response. White House Communications Director Stephen Chang said in a statement, 30-second video obtained by TMZ shows someone yelling in the president's direction, though it's unclear what exactly the person is saying, which I'm sure that's probably clear. If I had to guess. TMZ reported the person appeared to yell "pedophile protector" at the president. The video then shows the president pointing to the factory floor a few times as he continues to walk through part of the factory. He then flips off someone in the factory floor with his right hand. The second video is played showing what appears to be a more zoomed in the shot of the same interaction. It also shows what TMZ suggests is a person yelling "pedophile protector" at the president while he's standing in one place. And again, yeah, if somebody was screaming the same thing at me, I would do the same thing. The Marco Rubio memes continue, of course. For those of you on the audio platform, we have Rubio in a pirate outfit. Not as cool as Styx's pirate outfit, but in a pirate outfit with a song over the top. What shall we do with a Russian tanker? What shall we do with a Russian tanker? What shall we do with a Russian tanker? Early in the morning. I am very much enjoying these, by the way. Thank you to whoever started it. And I still don't know the context of why he was sitting out here like this and where the picture came from, but you have found ways to meme this in ways that I would have never even thought of. And lastly, the bid is over, and Warner Brothers is going to be going with Netflix. Which means, of course, that we can open up and probably get a large amount of Warner Brothers library into Netflix. Warner Brothers Discovery has formally rejected the hostile takeover bid from Paramount and the merger deal with Netflix, dubbing the proposed terms inferior to the Netflix partnership. And again, what that means is it's possible now, and we won't know until they get there, that we can have Game of Thrones on Netflix. We can have DC Universe on Netflix. We can have Animaniacs on Netflix again. We can have a bunch of stuff on Netflix that was currently divvied off into other streaming platforms. So, enjoy that if Netflix is something that you enjoy. Alright, we gotta head out of here. Partially because I think I have to go move my pickup. But with that, let's throw out some outro music and let's head out here for the day. Alright, so thanks everybody who came by and hung out and stayed with us while we had connectivity issues. We will be having a strongly worded conversation with Spectrum today. Oh, which they just told me. There appears to be an outage in the area we're actively working to resolve. If you'd like, I can schedule an automated contact so you're aware when this issue is resolved. Well, that doesn't help while we're sitting here live. But while we are live and everything stayed on, it was all recorded. So the live video will be privated. And a re-upload is coming, probably later this afternoon, so you can see it without all the coughs, hiccups, and outages as we go, and hear everything that I said, cursing the internet company as we were going here and watching all the connections drop off. So, thanks everybody who had the patience, hung out, stay alive with us. We will see you here next time, hopefully with better internet connection, or you can go check us out on the re-upload on YouTube, on Rumble, or on the audio platform, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your stuff. Thanks so much again for listening. We will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Take care, have a wonderful day, and enjoy your weekend. I have to go to work, so I won't as much. But most of you don't have to. Bye-bye!